Hello and welcome to this India Today special. Countries around the world are racing against time to develop a drug that can be used to treat COVID-19 patients. US pharma major Gilead Sciences is in talks with Indian drug companies to produce Remdesivir, an experimental drug that has shown positive results in trials. Countries like the United States and Japan are now approving the drug, but many others are also in the race. A drug ahead of the vaccine. Here's our big story.
Race to find a cure for COVID-19 is heating up. US pharma major it invented to treat Ebola has been approved by both US and Japan for use in emergency cases. India Today learns the phase 3 clinical trial of Remdesivir, led by a team of investigators, including an Indian-American physician, has shown positive results.
Remdesivir has some promise, but other ones still don't appear to be offering the kind of results where we can say, yeah, this is a good one. So that's the kind of situation right now. Some promise from one, some uncertain data from hydroxychloroquine, and otherwise we don't seem to have yet drugs coming forward.
Remdesivir is a proven SARS and MERS drug and is known to limit the ability of the virus to multiply. In the trials, patients who were given Remdesivir showed a 31% faster recovery rate.
Remdesivir has a clear-cut, significant positive effect in diminishing the time to recovery. Although a 31% improvement doesn't seem like a knockout 100%, it is a very important proof of concept, because what it is proven is that a drug can block this virus.
India too has joined the hunt for a corona cure. The Council of Scientific and Industrial Research has received approval from the Drug Controller General of India for its 2 clinical trial drugs, Favipiravir and phytopharmaceutical. While the first is an allopathic medicine that was used in Japan and China, the second one is a herbal medicine.
One is on a drug called Favipiravir. It's a drug which is used against influenza in Japan, China and other countries. Other approval that we have received from DCGI is on a phytopharmaceutical. That's an extract of a plant, and hopefully these trials will start as early as in a week from now.
All eyes are now on how successful these trials prove as the world races against time to find an effective treatment for COVID-19. Bureau Report, India Today.
And I'm joined by 3 very special guests on this race for a corona drug. Dr. Jacob Glanville, CEO and President, Distributed Bio, joining me there from California. You've also featured in the documentary series Pandemic. Appreciate your joining us. Dr. Shekhar Mande is Director General of the Center for Science and Industrial Research here in India. And I'm also joined by Dr. Anish Mehta. He is one of the leading infectious disease experts in the United States at Emory University, and crucially, the lead investigator into the Remdesivir project that's making waves across the world. I want to come to you for a moment, Dr. Mehta, because this is the big project, a lot of excitement and interest in the Remdesivir project. How far are you actually in a position where you can say you have a drug to mitigate the effects of coronavirus?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. We have been honored to be part of a large international trial organized by the National Institutes of Health here in the United States to look at Remdesivir as a potential therapeutic option to treat COVID-19 or this new coronavirus. Our preliminary data so far does indicate that patients do get better from COVID-19 on Remdesivir earlier than with the standard of care that they're receiving in the hospitals. So I think that is a great sign that we may be having a significant impact in these patients' disease and getting them home to their families earlier.
So are you therefore...
We still do need to do...
Are you deaf?
We still do need to do more research to understand how this medicine works, and in particularly which patients it works best, so that we can tailor our therapy to the individual patient and see if there's additional medications that may be added to improve their outcomes.
Dr. Glanville, you on the other hand are reported to be moving ahead with an antibody therapy for coronavirus. Tell us more about this discovery. Are you looking for antibodies that can fight coronavirus, and how soon do you believe that you'll be in a position to perhaps scale this entire process up?
Well, Rajdeep, thank you for having me on and a chance to share our story with the world's largest democracy. So yes, my team is developing antibody therapeutics. This is the same kind of medicine that changed the game with Ebola, where it went from 50% chance of dying to 94% chance of being okay if people receive the antibodies in time. Similarly with rabies, they're very effective antibodies that if you receive them, you will almost always be okay. If you don't receive them, you'll die. So this is a great potential therapy for treating the novel coronavirus. What my team did is we went back to SARS almost 20 years ago, and we identified a series of neutralizing antibodies that researchers discovered against SARS. So if SARS ever came back, these would be great antibodies. And because SARS is a cousin of the novel coronavirus, we were able to engineer those antibodies to adapt them to now neutralize very potently the novel coronavirus. So those antibodies have gone out to 3 different laboratories. We're receiving confirmation data back now and about to provide a press release. We are testing them in hamsters to see if they can protect a hamster from getting the coronavirus. And we are moving forward towards a human study, a phase 1/2 study towards the end of summer. Right. And if that is safe and efficacious, then we'd be administering it to large numbers of people in the fall.
So what you are saying is that you are looking at a process which over the next 4 to 5 months could, in your view, provide a mitigant. Am I correct? This would, in a way, mitigate perhaps some of the effects of corona.
So it should work quite well, yeah. So this is faster than vaccines, which won't be available until 2021. And vaccines you cannot use on patients because a vaccine takes too long to take effect. And then we really need a medicine. I'm very glad that Remdesivir is showing positive results. I have a family member who currently has COVID-19, and I've recommended, if possible, they ask for access, but it may be early for them to be able to do that. But it's not a full knockout punch. Antibodies, in the case of rabies and Ebola, were extremely effective. And so our hope is as long as it is safe and effective, by September, October, November, we can release large numbers of doses. And at that point, patients come in when they're sick, they receive an IV bag, and instead of getting much sicker, much longer, and having a risk of death, they could recover faster and go home. And that is the intention.
Very interesting. I want to come to you, Dr. Shekhar Mande, for a moment. You're the CSIR Director General, now the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. You've received approval from the drug controller for 2 clinical trial drugs, favipiravir and phytopharmaceutical, to combat coronavirus. Tell us about them. Are you also now looking at possibly finding a drug?
Yes, it's a very important step forward to get the DCGI approval to test it out. In other countries, it has already been used as an anti-influenza drug. It's an inhibitor of RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, and therefore we believe, because COVID-19 has an RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, it would be useful. It's already under clinical trials in some other countries, and therefore we feel encouraged that we should also do similar clinical trials in India. And if approved, or if the test results are good, it will be a good boon for the fight against COVID-19.
You know, Dr. Mehta, let's look at once again Remdesivir, because that seems to have gone the furthest at the moment. As I said, Japan, United States already have provided approval for its use. Can we say conclusively that Remdesivir at the moment is a drug based on your clinical trials that can act as a mitigant, and can you then produce it at a large scale, possibly for use even in countries like India, Dr. Mehta?
That's a wonderful question. So far, we only have preliminary data. We need a few more weeks at least to see all of our patients come through and see how they do in the long run. Hopefully, in about a month's time, we should have really good data to indicate how impactful Remdesivir is. But we also need to see if there are other agents that may help in addition to Remdesivir. So I think in about a month's time, we should know how well Remdesivir is working.
Judging from an Indian viewpoint, Dr. Mehta, there has been much talk of partnerships between pharma companies here and Gilead, which is manufacturing Remdesivir, that by early July, 2 months from now, this could be in the market. Is that a possibility? Is there a timeline that you're looking to complete your clinical trials successfully?
Well, we hope these partnerships between all the healthcare industries will come together very rapidly to not only produce the appropriate medications such as Remdesivir, but get them in the hands of the doctors and nurses that need to use them for their patients very quickly. I would hope that it happens as quickly as possible, but I do think it will take a little time to get to that state.
Dr. Mehta, but how does Remdesivir actually work? How does it prevent the virus from replicating itself? We just heard from Dr. Glanville about antibodies. What is it about Remdesivir that actually gives you hope that it can act as a cure, or dare I say a mitigant?
So I don't think Remdesivir will be a cure, but it will be a medicine that helps patients get better more rapidly. It works like most other antiviral medicines work. When a virus enters your body, it gets into the cells of the body and tries to hijack the cell's machinery to make more of itself. Medicines such as Remdesivir trick the cell also to incorporate it into the virus and making the virus inactive or inert, and therefore not allowing more virus to be produced. So once you become infected and this virus is trying to take over your cells, this medicine keeps that from going on, and so that your immune system can help fight off the virus and eventually get rid of it from the body.
Dr. Glanville, you mentioned about Ebola. I know Remdesivir has also been used in the fight against Ebola, but you've mentioned the antibodies that you're looking at have also been used in the fight against Ebola. But isn't COVID-19 very different even from Ebola, both in terms of how contagious it can be? In that sense, is this going to be much more difficult, a bigger challenge to find this mitigant drug?
It's a great question. Yeah, so the antibodies against Ebola are different antibodies than the ones against coronavirus, but they operate by the same principle. If you were to zoom into the coronavirus, you would see it surrounded by a series of spikes, like spikes on a crown, which is why they call it the coronavirus. Right. Ebola and other viruses also have typically spikes on their outside. And what these viruses do is they use those spikes to stab into your cells, break them open, and inject their malicious genetic cargo. That's how they infect you. Antibodies, the type we're building, go and block those spikes. So the virus is blunted and it's unable to infect you. And that general strategy is true with Ebola and with rabies. In our case, the antibodies are different. So our antibodies recognize the novel coronavirus, but many of them also recognize SARS. And the idea why that is valuable is that this gives us a medicine not just to solve the current crisis, but the next time COV3 or COV4 comes along, we'd have something off the shelf that we could give immediately.
Right. I was told, as I said, Dr. Mehta, that Remdesivir was manufactured in 2014 to fight Ebola. You were part of that process. You're now part of the process in the fight against corona. Do you believe that the Ebola experience gives you the confidence that if it could be used against MERS, against SARS earlier, it can also work for coronavirus? Is that where your confidence in a way is coming from at the moment?
So yes, I was part of our experience taking care of patients with Ebola virus in 2014 and 15. And through that process, we evaluated multiple drugs, multiple medications as potential to help our patients. Remdesivir was one that came forward in that process. And our colleagues in Africa were trying to bring it through clinical trials, which did not happen until 2019 during the outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In that experience, we found that Remdesivir was safe to use. It, however, was not as effective as 2 other medications in that clinical trial. However, between 2015 and the 2019 outbreak, there was wonderful science performed by colleagues here in the United States and elsewhere that showed that Remdesivir did have activity against coronaviruses, such as SARS, the original SARS, and MERS-CoV as well. And so when we discovered that the outbreak in China was caused by a new SARS virus, it very quickly came to all of our minds that this may be a drug to use. And then laboratories tested against the new SARS-CoV virus, SARS-CoV-2, and found that it did have activity, and that's why we brought it forward in this large NIH clinical trial.
You know, I want to understand again from an Indian perspective, Dr. Shekhar Mande, the CSIR deciding to go ahead with favipiravir as a possible drug, antiviral drug. The world is trying all kinds of permutations. How did you zero in on favipiravir?
So the thing is that we have priorities drawn up. A whole lot of repurposing drugs that we are looking at. And we think that repurposing are the low-hanging fruits right now. But we should try them out because many of them have broad-spectrum antiviral activities. And if some of them can work for this, it will be very, very useful. So in our priority, favipiravir is very high. We also have some other antivirals lined up that we are actually approaching DCGI for approvals for clinical trials.
How soon, though, do you expect the results to come out? How soon, Dr. Mande, do you expect actual results?
So the trials on 50 patients will take about a couple of months. So at the end of 2 months is only when actually we'll start seeing what it is. In between, we don't start analyzing any of the things because they are double-blinded. So about approximately, I would say 6 to 8 weeks are the results we shall start seeing in the first phase.
You know, when I hear these stories about scientists in India looking to find drug combinations for COVID, you, Dr. Glanville, are doing this in California, there at Emory University, along with the National Health Center. You've got Dr. Mehta. Is there a race almost going on at the moment, Dr. Glanville, as to who will find a magical drug first?
So there is a race, and the competition is very annoying and has a head start, but we're smarter, and that race is against the virus. We're all working together on this. What we want to do is we want to arm our clinicians, our doctors, with multiple drugs and as many good-looking drugs as we can. There's 3 criteria here. First, the drugs need to be effective. We need something that can help the patients, maybe multiple medicines. Second, it needs to be globally accessible. What we learned in the Ebola crisis is that good drugs were made, but they weren't able to be distributed efficiently. And third, they need to be affordable. It doesn't do us any good to make a medicine that works, but it's so expensive that most of the world doesn't have access to it. If this pandemic has taught us anything, is that the virus does not respect national boundaries or socioeconomic classes. We all need treatment and we all need to be protected, or it'll just keep circling and infecting us over and over again. So we're all in this together.
We're all in this together. Does Remdesivir, Dr. Mehta, work primarily on patients who are critical? Is that how you see it, that this will actually only help those who are already critically ill, possibly on ventilators?
So that's a fantastic question and an answer that we really need. So the preliminary data that we have so far has just looked at all patients lumped together. In the coming weeks, we'll be able to separate out critically ill patients, patients on breathing machines, mechanical ventilators, and more moderately ill patients to see if the drug has a stronger benefit in one group versus a different group. And this will really help the doctors and nurses understand which patients it's best to use it in. We do believe that the earlier that you can start Remdesivir on patients will likely have a stronger benefit in them in the long run.
Let me ask you, Dr. Glanville, therefore, in conclusion, as Indian scientists work on it, Dr. Mehta works on it, the other question that comes is, till such time as we get a drug, the vaccine, as you said, is 8 to 12 months away, but till we find this drugs, combination of drugs, are you among those who believes that we have to buy time through a lockdown of the kind that we are seeing in countries across the world?
So the answer is yes, but there is medicine in the meantime. So like we heard, Remdesivir and viral repurposing drugs, antivirals are available. We're also collaborating with the University of San Carlos in Guatemala to set up a plasma transfer protocol. Right. I think this is a good mitigation measure that we can apply in the meantime because every nation has recovered patients. This is a treatment where you take serum from a recovered patient and then that person donates it and you give it to a new patient.
Right.
It doesn't fully scale because when you have big outbreaks, you have too many new patients, but it's something that we can give and historically has been successful. I still do think there needs to be a balance of social distancing, wearing masks, not shaking hands, not kissing on cheeks. But there is a limit. So I grew up in Guatemala, and in Guatemala, people do not have the luxury of just staying home. They have to work each day in order to feed their families. And so that is going to be the constant balance of economic consequences and health consequences, and how we strike a balance to make sure that there aren't so many people in a single outbreak overwhelming our hospital systems until such time as we have an effective set of medicines to be able to treat them when they arrive.
One final question, Dr. Mehta. With India very seriously looking at Remdesivir as a possible cure, is there a pricing model that will help every person get access to it, a person in need?
I think that's a very good question. I am not an economist, but as a physician who's been caring for these patients for over 2 months now, I really hope that our healthcare infrastructures around the world will come together to make sure that we have access to this medication and other medications that may be effective in the treatment of COVID-19 patients, so that all the patients that need to receive it do receive it.
Well, all I can say is I can wish you well. Dr. Glanville, thank you very much for joining us. I wish you well in your project. Dr. Mehta, you and your team with the Remdesivir project. And here in India, let's hope that CSIR too can take forward India's reputation when it comes to drugs even further forward. The race for a cure has begun. As Dr. Glanville says, it's not about 1, 2, 3. It's about who can actually work collectively to solve the coronavirus challenge. Thank you all so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure having you here on this very special show. At India Today, we try and get you some of the best minds on the issue. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.